Greetings, fellow detectives. Wizard Kitten here, bringing you a new build in The Sims 4. We are back to doing a Nancy Drew inspired speed build in The Sims 4. It has been such a long time since I have done a Nancy Drew recreation, but since we got the new Nancy Drew Mystery of the Seven Keys, I actually have a new game to kind of play around with in The Sims 4, so this is super exciting. This is my first build, my first recreation for a location in Nancy Drew Mystery of the Seven Keys, and I do want to give a shout out as well to Jetpack over at the Gooba and Jetpack channel. I know that Jetpack has done a version of the Hungerkunstler cafe before I did. I waited until after I finished my build before I watched Jetpack's version so as not to accidentally copy anything, but Jetpack did a great job, so you should definitely go check out that version as well. So this is an interesting building because in the game, the Hungerkunstler Cafe is on the bottom level of a very grand building with multiple floors, and it is connected and surrounding a huge plaza. So the sides of the building don't have windows. It's not a freestanding building. It's almost like a giant courtyard surrounded by buildings, and the Hungerkunstler Cafe is part of those surroundings. So I did have to take some creative liberties in my build here because I needed to make the building freestanding. What I decided to do was make the first level also have a second level. In the game, I believe there's 4 levels. I'm not about to do a 4-level house in The Sims 4 or a 4-level cafe when all of the levels are not things that we see in game. So I did 2 levels. On the second level, I do have 2 blank apartments. I kind of furnished them with a kitchen and bathroom, 2 bedrooms each. So they are ready to be furnished, and a Sim could conceivably live there. But right now the lot is classified as a cafe, and unfortunately your Sim cannot own a cafe and then live above the cafe in an apartment. So if you wanted to, you could leave this as a cafe. You could also change it to rental units using for rent if you wanted to actually have your Sim live in the rental units above the cafe and then just kind of pretend to go to the cafe. People wouldn't show up there, but it would still be kind of fun. But regardless, that's how I decided to make this building work in The Sims 4. Make it big enough so it looked as grand as it does in the game, but also make it manageable enough that it is playable in The Sims 4. We are currently working on the outside courtyard, which honestly is easily my favorite part of the build. I used some fairy lights from the toddler stuff pack to make the courtyard kind of have this beautiful lighting. I was trying to find a purple-ish tree because they have purple trees in the courtyard surrounding. I decided instead to use some lilac bushes. I make some custom planters. I do also find a pink tree later on from Seasons that I use in the courtyard to also kind of get that feel, decorate the courtyard a little bit. But I'm really pleased with how the courtyard turned out because, one, it does look very similar to how it looks in Nancy Drew Mystery of the Seven Keys, and 2, it looks fantastic in The Sims, and it would be such a cozy place to get a coffee. I built this in Windenburg, and this is in kind of the more modern area. This is usually where the nightclub is, the discotheque nightclub, I think. So I got rid of that and put the cafe here so it's surrounded by water on all sides. So if your Sim was sitting there getting a cup of coffee and sitting in that courtyard, they just have these beautiful water views. It would be such a lovely place for your Sims to go on a date or for a little friend hangout. I tried to kind of blend it into the environment around the lot as well. So in the back you'll see kind of like that grassy area. In the front we have the stone here. I tried to match the cobblestones fairly well. They are still distinct, so you can still tell that the lots are different, but I tried to kind of blend it in so it feels like the slot belongs here. It feels like it's supposed to sit here. I was going to build this in a world other than Windenburg because I feel like I build in Windenburg a lot. However, Windenburg is the European-inspired world, and so it does just kind of make sense for a Mystery of the Seven Keys build, and it makes sense for honestly a lot of Nancy Drew recreations because so many of Nancy's mysteries are in Europe. So it ended up working out well. I might actually even keep this build, the Hungerkunstler Cafe, here in my preferred save file that I play in, which would mean that Windenburg would then have like 6 cafes. But I don't go to lounges or nightclubs or discotheques, and neither do my Sims, but they do go to cafes. So maybe it's not a bad thing that they have 6 different choices to choose from. Are you cafe people? If you're a cafe person, let me know in the comment section down below. What's your preferred coffee order? Do you love going to cafes? I definitely love a good cafe. I love brunch. I love going to coffee shops, especially if I need to write a paper or get something done. Coffee shops and cafes are where I go. I plant myself at a table, get myself a delicious beverage, listen to some moody music, some music that sets the mood, not moody music itself, but you know, music that sets the focus mood or whatever vibe I would like to channel in that moment. And that's the way that I'm most productive. It works out quite well and makes me super happy. So yes, I am definitely a cafe person. If I had the opportunity to go to the Hungerkunstler Cafe in real life, I absolutely would. I love me a cafe. So on the back here is where we are putting in the entrance to the apartments. So this is not included in Nancy Drew Mystery of the Seven Keys. This is just me making it more useful for The Sims 4 and also making that second level space actually matter somewhat. I have to finagle the stairs a little bit, finagle the doors a little bit. But eventually we actually get to decorating the interior to make it look like the game. I'm curious how many of you have played Nancy Drew Mystery of the Seven Keys at this point. At the time of recording, it's at the end of July 2024. So it's been out for a while. It's been out since May. It's been released on Steam now as well, so it's definitely more accessible. Curious to hear what you think. I won't share any spoilers or details or anything in this video. If you do want to see those, definitely go check out my reviews. I have a spoiler-free version and a more comprehensive version that does include some very mild spoilers, still no culprit spoilers or anything. But yeah, it's been a while. We have not yet played Mystery of the Seven Keys in my Nancy Drew 2024 Summer Streamathon yet either, so I'm due for my 3rd play. I played it once for a blind walkthrough. I played it again on stream after doing all of my reviews and everything, and as we play it in the Summer Streamathon, that'll be my 3rd time playing, so I'm curious to see what it feels like upon replays and all of that. Regardless, I do really enjoy the Hungerkunstler Cafe as a location. I think it was very smart to give us a coffee shop or cafe, coffee shop, cafe, whatever you want to call it, bookstore basically. There's a ton of books in there as well. It's just such a cozy location, and I think a lot of people who play the Nancy Drew games are very into cozy locations. It's one of our favorite things, so that's part of the reason why a lot of us love the Nancy Drew games, is because there are so many cozy locations. Like the Hot Kettle Cafe. Was that the last time we got a cafe? No, the Cafe Kiki in Danger by Design. There's got to be more. We gotten several pubs later on, I suppose, but any kind of cozy little location I'm going to be happy with. I did try to maintain a kind of European-inspired feel for the apartments as well. They're not old, they're not decrepit or anything like that. I also furnish and decorate those off camera because, like, the feature of this is going to be the Hungerkunstler Cafe itself, not the random apartments that I built at the top. But if you do download this from the gallery, it will have the apartments furnished. And my gallery ID is WizardKittenYT if you are curious to take a look at those or download this build. It does use quite a few packs, fair warning. It uses a lot of University. It uses Get Famous. It uses Romantic Garden stuff. It uses Perfect Patio. It uses a lot. It really does. It's a lot of Get Together. It's probably mostly Get Together and Discover University, I would say, are kind of the main features. But You're gonna need quite a few packs if you want most of the items to download. So now we are finally moving on to the interior. And one of the things that I wanted to do with this build was capture kind of like the lovely green color that we have going around the wall. And I also wanted to make sure that I painted the ceiling and had the ceiling be a little bit more elaborate. That was one of my criticisms of the Hungerkunstler Cafe in the game itself. It feels grand-ish, but then it also kind of just feels a little bit haphazard or a little bit unfinished in places. For example, the ceilings. I really wish that the green on the crown molding of the ceilings had continued, or on the walls had continued onto the ceilings, so that we had kind of a more ornate feel to the building, so that it felt more old, really more historical. So I did that in this one. And I did make some creative choices too on where I placed some of the couches, where I placed some of the bookshelves. It is not picture perfect a recreation, especially since I added, additional windows, because normally these windows on the side here wouldn't exist because they would be attached to the adjacent building. So kind of filling in those spaces in a way that made sense and making the building still look pretty while still including all of the elements of the Hungerkunstler Cafe that we get in the game was definitely important to me. I wanted it to be a balance. I wanted it to still look like the location, but also be pretty. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. I'm quite pleased. We'll start seeing as we start putting in more of the furnishing how that vision starts to come to life. But we're doing the most important feature right now, which is the coffee station. This coffee station I did kind of finagle around quite a bit. I do like the color that we found for the wood tones and the countertop. It's actually pretty similar to what we have in the game, so pretty decent for a recreation. At first it was a little bit smaller, and then I decided to kind of expand it out because in the game there are counters wrapped all the way around. So they're in the front where you serve the coffee, it's on the side, and then it loops around the back as well. So they do cover up the windows slightly. But the windows just let in so much wonderful natural light. I do even include an additional window that's not supposed to be there. The window in the middle of this coffee station doesn't exist in the game, but I wanted it. I needed it. It looked better, so I kept it. I do put things on the window, but it's The Sims, so we can pretend that it's just attached to like the wood of the window and not the glass, like it kind of looks like it is. So now we are putting in the espresso machine, the little magazine stands, and then I basically go into the catalog and search coffee and tea and put anything I can find that is coffee or tea related, because it's actually quite cluttered on these counters in the game. Patrizia has a very busy coffee station. See, here was me testing without the window, and I was like, no, window stays. Looks better on the inside, looks better on the outside, window stays. But anyway, Patrizia has kind of a cluttered workspace, which honestly makes sense for Patrizia's character. I think she likes to have kind of everything just spread out and available. She strikes me as a more spontaneous, cluttered kind of person than a very particular organized kind of person. So I had a lot of fun cluttering up the countertops, finding anything that had to do with coffee or tea, scattering it all about. It looks like a sweet little coffee shop. And it's no wonder that basically all of the characters in the game come here and hang out for at least a portion of the game. It's a pretty popular location. It's possible that it's not my favorite location in the game. I would say it's like, if I were ranking all of the locations in the game, it's kind of top middle of the locations in the game. I'd be curious to hear for you all what you think of the cafe in terms of the other locations in the game. There's one location that's definitely my favorite. The locations in the game overall, I think, are strong, but could be stronger. And I get into that in more depth in my review, which again, I don't want to spoil or anything, but I have thoughts. I have thoughts. What is everyone's preferred coffee order too? I would be very curious to hear when you're going to a coffee shop or a cafe. What are you usually getting? I'm pretty basic. I just get a latte And I often don't even get it flavored. It depends on the time of year. If it's fall time, I might get a pumpkin latte. If it's around Christmas time, I'll probably get a peppermint one. If it's in the spring, I'll probably get lavender. Like, I'll probably spice up my latte a little bit depending on the time of the year. But after the initiation of a new season, I generally will just kind of get like a plain latte. I do like an oat milk latte, but regular milk is fine too. And I do really, really love pastry items and bakery items. They just always go well with coffee. It's kind of a necessary accompaniment to the latte, if you will. I did include a bathroom in the Hungerkunstler Cafe because I thought it needed one. It does not have a bathroom in the game, but you know, bathrooms in public spaces are important. Although apparently that is less common in Europe and other parts of the world than it is here in the US. Like, basically all public locations here have a public bathroom that you can use for free. But apparently that's not always the case in other places. If you live somewhere out of the United States, I'd be curious to hear. Do you have public bathrooms readily available? Do you have to pay for public bathroom use? What on earth do you do if you need to use the bathroom and you're out in public? Like, what do you do in those places where they're not just readily available? That would stress me out, honestly. I'm sure you get used to it if you live in one of those places. But that would stress me out, just not knowing that I would have a place to use if I needed it. So now we're starting to put in the bookshelves, and I use the Discover University bookshelves, just kind of copy and pasted them around because they are perfect for medium wall height. They go all the way up to the top. They also have the perfect colored wood tone, and they have exactly the vibe that we want to. They look very ornate. They have the pretty glass, the pretty designs on them. They're full of books. I just really loved how they looked. So definitely used those. I used these beautiful love seats from the Crystal Creations stuff pack as well. And then created these little dividers that are all over the cafe, which actually is a great way to kind of divide up the space. I don't do this often when I'm making community lots, but it works out really well because it kind of defines these different locations and helps break up the big giant room a little bit more. So I'm gonna have to remember that as a tip in the future. I did also use a couple items from the new Love Struck expansion pack, a couple tables, and a couple plants. There are so many plants in the Hungerkunstler Cafe, like a ridiculous amount of plants, and I forgot about it until I was taking screenshots in the game to prepare for this build, and I was like, oh yeah, there's literally so many plants. They're everywhere to a ridiculous extent, like all over the place. Did not need that many. It was kind of like, okay, we need to fill in the space with decoration. What should we add? Plants. So I did the same thing. I basically put plants on every available surface. I have them all spread out. And you know what? It does look nice. I mean, plants are great. Plants are perfect for decoration. In The Sims, that's often the rule too. If you need to fill in an empty space, you're usually going to use plants. So fair enough. I'll take it. I did also use these beautiful curtains from the, oh gosh, what's it called? It's like the luxury kit, not the stuff pack, but there's a luxury kit, and these curtains are absolutely beautiful, and they do come with a curtain rod, which is like so important. It's hard to emphasize if you build in The Sims a lot just how important a curtain rod is. It seems like such a small thing, but it is so helpful. I also put out these nice high tops with the bar stools over here. Struggled to find a nice chair that matched the ones in the game for a while. Finally just decided on these because they kind of matched the sit-down table chairs a little bit closer. Put out a couple laptops in honor of the game. And now we're starting to clutter it up with some items that you maybe would be using over at this station. In the game, in Mystery of the Seven Keys, the tables are absolutely covered with uneaten food. Like, there's just like a whole cheesecake sitting on like some of these tables, and none of the NPCs like eat the food. The food doesn't disappear. It's quite literally just sitting there. It looks kind of funny. So I didn't do that because we also don't have those kinds of items in The Sims 4. We don't have a whole lot of food clutter, but it also would just make the tables pretty much unusable. So I just stuck with plants. I put little flowers on all of them. We got a lot of really cute small plants with the new Lovestruck expansion that I was really excited to see. I love having more small plants because it's just so easy to slot them where you need them to go. There are a lot of plants that look like they would be small enough to slot in certain places, but then actually are not small enough to slot. So I'm glad that we got some that actually do fit on these teeny tiny little shelves. And we're pretty much done with the right half of the shop. And now we're heading over to the left half of the shop where we're going to kind of do the little sitting area where Adela Cherna hangs out, where you can find a bunch of books. Normally there would be kind of a little station that kind of teaches you a little bit about Prague over on this side, but because of the windows, it doesn't really make sense. So I basically just made it more of a seating area. There was a particular plant at the end of the coffee area of the coffee station that we have basically an exact replica of. There it is. Also from the luxury kit, whose name I cannot remember at the moment. But I had to make sure I found it because it was basically an exact match, and I was pretty happy. Whenever that happens when I'm doing these recreations and I find something that matches perfectly, I get very excited. That is ideal when doing these. Exact match. Yes, please. Makes my job easier and also helps with the recreation. We're getting pretty close to the end here. Just a few more decorations, a few more places to add. The floor plan of this building is very interesting. I'm kind of curious why they had this random hexagonal kind of bookshelf area. I decided to use the Realm of Magic bookshelves to fill it in, and it actually worked out okay. But it was just kind of an interesting choice. It's like, why would you randomly make such a difficult area both to navigate around and to use? I'm wondering if this was maybe built off of an actual cafe, considering how realistic or photorealistic or copied, I guess, the other locations are. Like, they are literally exact replicas of, for example, the St. Vitus Cathedral. It's literally an exact replica. I'm wondering if this is quite literally an exact replica of a cafe in Prague. Who knows? It could be. On the wall here, I had some empty space where I put a bunch of art that reminded me of Nancy Drew games. Basically any piece that had a brown frame and reminded me of a Nancy Drew game, I put on the walls. So you'll have to see if you can guess which game I was thinking of when I chose these particular pieces. This is in reference to all of the paintings of different locations in previous Nancy Drew games that were included in the Hungerkunstler cafe by the developers. Normally those would have been on the other side of the cafe. I put them here because I had wall space here, and I did not on the other side because I needed to include windows and a bookshelf. So they are over here, but I had a lot of fun trying to pick out the different pictures. It's like, okay, well, this one reminds me of Ransom of the Seven Ships or Creature of Kapu Cave, like that palm tree one. Take your pick, either one. It really reminds me of both. I guess more Creature of Kapu Cave. I'm getting more Kapu Cave vibes from that one. I do really love that they included cookies in the game. References to past games really helps make the universe feel more complete, makes it feel more real, like Nancy is like actually solving cases. They actually have stakes because people remember what she solves or how she solves things. So I really appreciate that they brought those back. That's definitely the biggest thing I can say in Mystery of the Seven Keys' favor, is that they did listen to fans again, which I greatly, greatly appreciate. So we've got our final few little cafe tables over here, just filling them in with more plants, because that's the Hungerkunstler's cafe's thing. Lots and lots of plants. And then just doing a quick little look around to make sure that everything is how I want it, adding a couple more details on the side here. I do add some little stone pathways for the apartments in the back now, because it was annoying me that they were just a green path, and if I used terrain paint or anything, it would just come up against grass. So I use these little pavers from the debug menu as a happy medium. But once we're done with that, we will be heading into the live tour where I will take you through and kind of give you a first-person view of my version of the Hungerkunstler Cafe. So let's go ahead and pop into that. Okay, so here we are at the exterior of the Hungerkunstler Cafe. We have the kind of fancy architecture on the outside here, and then the nice little sitting area outside with some fairy lights, some umbrella tables, the beautiful kind of black iron wrought fence. Love how this little courtyard turned out, especially with all the water here in Windenburg. This would just be such a lovely place to get a cup of coffee. And then if we head inside the Hungerkunstler Cafe, we have the coffee area over here, stacked up with kind of all of the coffee paraphernalia you could think of, and tea as well, of course. Over to the right side, we have some sitting areas, lots of books. We have kind of the long table where you can sit with your laptop, maybe get some work done, maybe download some files. If you know, you know. Over here, we have a bathroom for guests to use. In the game, this is just an empty area, but a bathroom is definitely more functional for The Sims. And then if you continue around, we have the little alcove with the fancy astronomical clock. So had to make sure to include that since it's so iconic. Over here we have some more seating with some pictures inspired by the Nancy Drew games in honor of all of the cookies that the developers tried to include. We have some more seating over here, some more tables and books, and then over in the corner this adorable little alcove with even more books. So yeah, that is the Hungerkunstler Cafe. I hope you enjoyed this Sims 4 speed build. It has been a while since I've done a speed build. I had a lot of fun returning to this task and trying to do an accurate recreation, but still making this cafe very functional for your Sims as well if you wanted to include it in your Sims game. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please feel free to hit that like button, comment, or subscribe. I would love to hear your thoughts. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.